Hello, crafty comrades. Today I am scrapbooking these 3 or 4 photos. I wasn't sure exactly how many I would scrap, but I have 4 of them printed up. 2 of them are pictures of my husband's new car. Well, it's our new car, but it's the one that he's going to be spending most of the time driving. And so the first 2 are of the car. One is both of like our old car and our new car side by side outside the dealership. The other is a close-up of the paint of the new car because it's a very interesting, unique color. And then the other 2 are 2 car selfies. Now, our family does car selfies. It's kind of like our thing whenever we do something, even if it's just like going to the mall together, we take a car selfie because we're that kind of family. And so I have these 2, and I like the angle of this one, and I wish that my daughter wasn't leaning over so much. One of my daughters doesn't like getting her picture taken, so she always covers her face for all of the photos. So I knew that I wouldn't have her face, but I can't even see her head in the one that I'm leaning towards using, but that's okay. That's kind of a reflection of the time. And so I'm going to go ahead and use it anyways because I like a couple of different things about it. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. And it just, as I was kind of looking at them, it kind of struck me that I'd like to use the selfie on the diagonal like that with the other 2 up and above it, like kind of how it's configured right now. So I went and took a picture of how they were laid out, and that way if I forgot, I would be able to bring it up and remember it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually looking through my stash for some mixed media backgrounds. I knew I had some somewhere in my room, but I couldn't quite find where they were because I've recently changed rooms, and it only took me a little bit of time to find them, but that's why I'm gone for so long. Sorry about that, but here I am. I'm on my way back right now. And the reason I'm looking for some mixed media backgrounds that I've already done is that A, I don't really feel like doing mixed media right now, and B, I'm trying to make this page be a complete like scrap and stash type of layout where I don't want to cut into anything new unless if I really have to. And so mixed media backgrounds that I've already prepared, it's kind of like, it's a bit of a scrap. It's just a 12 by 12 scrap. So I looked in my mixed media background scraps that I have, and I didn't like any of them. I did pull over this one with gold splatter on it. It's just some off spray from my kind of just overspray, and I just sopped it up on a piece of white cardstock to use as a background sometime in the future. It doesn't really look very pleasing, and it definitely doesn't go with this page. I find my challenge with this page is that the colors in the photos are throwing me off because there's a couple of things that aren't working right. So I thought I might use some sassafras. So I did pull out my sassafras, and you'll see me just kind of go through all of my sassafras stash. This paper is not going to work at all. It's the wrong color scheme, but actually it might have picked up nicely on the browns in the car. But at the time I thought that wasn't going to work. So I pull out some of my favorite sassafras. I don't think that this was a good match for these photos. I think I just wanted to use sassafras. And this reminds me of walnut, kind of walnut stain on wood. And so because the finish of the car is called, I think it's called polished walnut or something like that, that kind of reminded me of, it's not exactly the right color, but anyhow, I'm just pulling out some of my favorite sassafras papers and never minding whether they actually match with the layout that I have in mind or not. This gray one I think might work, but the other ones, I don't know. I'm just being too, I don't know what I'm doing here, but as you can see, I've got a whole mishmash of stuff that really isn't going to work at all with these photos. I thought that the coppery colored tissue paper there might be nice because there are copper flecks in the finish of the car. And yeah, so I'm really trying to work with this sassafras paper. I've got my heart set on using sassafras, and I'm going to go a ways down this road before I decide to start all over again with a completely different idea. So so I was talking about what the problem was with these photos. So part of my problem is that the selfie photo, the car selfie, has a Valencia filter on it. So it has a real yellowy, warm look to it. Not yellowy, but it just has a creamy base to it. Whereas the other photos have lots of cool tones in them. Like the Kia dealership has this gray on the building that looks very cool. It was also a really, really bright sunny day when we took the photos, so it's very kind of stark looking outside of the Kia dealership. Oops, pardon my head for a second there. There we go. Oops, again. I just wanted to get those lined up with the top of that cardstock. That's actually a piece of printer cardstock. It's not scrapbooking cardstock. It's actually cover stock. So it's very, very inexpensive white cardstock. I did pop up that diagonal photo just for a little bit of extra interest. These photos are printed at 3x3 for the larger ones, and then the smaller one is printed at 2x2. I'm going to use my scissors to cut all these funny angles. And I really like how these photos look overlapped like that. My first idea was to use it kind of like a grid and do some journaling beside the diamond-shaped photo, but I decided against that. So here I am really trying to work with these photos. One of them has really cool tones and the other two have warm tones. That one that's close up of the car, because the car is a really dark brown with copper flecks in it, it's almost black, it's almost purpley, it's kind of hard to tell. That photo could go either way, but the other two photos are so different in their tones that I'm really having a hard time deciding which background to use. And see, I love these two together, that stone cardstock with that polka dot from Sassafras. I really adore that, but not for this photo. Not for these photos together anyways. So see, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I just can't get this color scheme that I have in mind to really work. So then at the last minute, I thought I had accidentally taken a piece of black cardstock. So I thought, well, maybe I should just do the whole thing on black. And then I thought, yeah, just forget all that. I'm having such a hard time making it come together that I might as well just scrap that whole idea and move on with the black. I'm holding on to that gray cardstock because I like how warm it is. It's a warm gray. And I think that if I need to warm up this page, that pattern paper will help me with that task. Then I grabbed my gray, black, and white scrap drawer. So as I mentioned, I'm trying to work from scraps on this page, entirely from scraps. So I have a bunch of scraps in here, including some black. I'm thinking about double matting this, but I don't have a big enough piece of black cardstock. I'm really trying not to cut into new pieces of paper, but I'm going to have to in order to get the black cardstock matting that I want. But I'll cut into an 8.5 by 11 and not a 12 by 12. So first of all, I know that I love this. This is one of my all-time favorite pattern papers. It's from the Felicity Jane Essentials collection, and I don't know if they still sell that or not. I stocked up and I haven't been back to their website because I haven't needed to, because I still have plenty. But I think I bought 3 or 4 or maybe even 5. I don't know. I bought an embarrassingly large amount of those essentials because I just adore this one paper. I also like all the other papers in it, but I especially love this one. So I liked the white edges that I got when I tore that. And I often tear in one big fast strip, and that gets a nice, very straight torn edge. But here I wanted an interesting torn edge because I'm thinking that this page is going to be entirely black and white and only the photos will be colors. So I want to do as much as I can to build interest into what I am putting on the page, since color isn't going to be an element that will add that interest. I usually rely on colors to add at least some of the interest to my page. So I have to compensate for the lack of color by being mindful to add texture wherever I can. So I'm just cutting this out. And I actually did a bad job of cutting it out. It's really wobbly in that corner there. And I love the corner. I thought about starting over again, but I had already broken my rule of not cutting into anything new. So I didn't want to cut into another new piece of paper. So I've decided to rescue this. See how it's just not, yeah, it's not very good there. So I took this piece of paper with an actual straight edge. And I'm just going to cover up the wonky little edge with it. And there, you can barely see that that was cut improperly. And so now that gives me a nice crisp corner in there, which I may end up covering up anyways, but sorry I forgot to zoom out here. I hope I remember soon, but yeah, there we go. So now I've got my header and my footer at the top and the bottom with that beautiful Felicity Jane black and white paper. And then this is a piece of Webster's Pages, which I don't even know where I got that because I don't think I've ever bought Webster's Pages before. It might have come in a kit. And then that other black and white paper, I don't know what that's from, but I really love it. The white on black. No, yeah, the black on white. So that hexagon one is from Webster's Pages. And then this is the one right here that I'm not sure what brand it is, but I really love it. It is not square. Well, of course it's not square because it's a rectangle, but it doesn't have right angles. So I'm just going to grab my trimmer and fix it up a little bit, just to make it a little bit, things don't have to be perfect. I'm not one who strives for perfection on my pages, but that was looking a little bit too wonky for my liking. And then I thought maybe it still wasn't square, but it is now. Right angled corners is what I mean when I say square. So there we go. I really love that punched out piece of that white pattern paper and how the darker pattern paper shows from below. I really love that. And I like how these are layering together. So I thought about adding that stripy one that I pulled for, these are all for my scrap drawers. And then I thought this one will add something really nice because it's a large scale floral. And I do have that other one, the other whiter paper, like that's black on a white background, the one that I don't know the brand of. That one, it almost reads as, it's kind of like a geometric print and a floral at the same time because it has this latticey type of look, but there's also flowers in it. So I thought about maybe leaving those curved edges on the side of that larger scaled floral. So what I was talking about was how I have a variety of different patterns, but they have differences between them. They're not too similar to one another. So some of them are dark on a white background and others are light on a black dark background. And I have a large scale floral and then a smaller scale floral / geometric. And then I have this tight geometric on the dark, which is that chevron paper. And then I have the really bold geometric with the black and white stripes at the top and the bottom. And so I'm just talking here about how I don't want to do a whole lot of alternating. Like I don't want to go white and then black and then white and then black like this. This kind of goes white, black, white, black, white, black. And I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that I purposely put two white papers that are black prints on white beside each other. So the two, like the geometric floral and the regular large scale floral, those two are side by side for a reason so that I don't get that back and forth layered symmetrical look that it looks a little bit too contrived. So again, I'm mindful of the fact that everything on this page could very well end up being black and white. So I want to add some texture. That little piece of vellum that I had for my scraps, it just came out with the black and white scraps. I didn't mean to pick it. That piece was a little bit too small and it was also dirty. So I'm not going to use that piece here. And so I just took a piece of vellum from my Erin Condren Life Planner. They come with a little piece of patterned vellum in the front, and I took out a plain piece of it. And I was planning to cut off the hole punched edge, but I decided that I actually kind of like it. So I'm going to keep that hole punched edge from the Erin Condren Life Planner. And then I'm using my punch here. This is one of my favorite punches. It is the double embossed dotted lace punch. And it gives you this really nice scalloped look. And I chose a scalloped edge because I was thinking about kind of playing off of the scallops that are reverse cut in that large floral black and white pattern. I'm going to end up changing my mind about that, even though it was the scallops on that paper that inspired the scallops on the vellum. I do like the scallops on the vellum, but once they're there, it looks a little bit too busy with those large negative scallops. I'm just playing around with the size, like with how long it is and how it's going to layer with the other things. And now it's just looking too busy with those two large scallops. So even though they were the inspiration for adding scallops here in the first place, I'm just going to tear them off. It doesn't have to be perfect. I actually like the imperfect look of that torn edge. And now I'm just gluing that down, and I'm going to pull the vellum up and have it look pretty, curled up is the word I'm looking for. So that adds some really nice texture there. And it will just be that tiny little detail that will peek out from around whatever embellishments I end up putting on this page. I'm going to hang on to all these little black and white strips because black and white strips are one of my favorite things to add to a page, so I'm definitely going to hang on to them. I'm just tossing them over into my black and white scraps drawer, which you've already seen. I showed it earlier in this video. I do store all of my scraps by color, and I find that really helps me to use my scraps, even though it is a bit of an investment in terms of taking up space in your scrap room. So today I sorted all of my chipboard that I own into color boxes here. This is what I did with my die cut pieces quite some time ago. And so I just pulled out my black and white chipboard box. These are 4x6 boxes. They're made by Iris, and they're designed for storing 4x6 photos in, I believe. But I have several of them. I have a couple of dozen of them actually, and I keep them, as I said, I use them to sort my die cuts, and now I'm also using them to store my chipboard. I had to take all the sticky off of the backs of my chipboard. I did that by either peeling or using some powder, and I'm going to post a video where I show how I did that, so keep an eye out for that. Chipboard storage solution video. I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, but I have filmed it. I just haven't edited it yet. So as you can see, I was zoomed in as I pulled out the chipboard that I thought would work with this page, but I have these sort of three clusters forming in my mind. One, that kind of keyhole shaped frame with the ampersand on it will hold my journaling. And then I thought I might call this Best Ever SUV and put SUV on that black and white label that's down below Best Ever. And then have like those other little plus signs and stars represent different clusters of embellishments. So I would be putting embellishments in each of those three spots where the stars and pluses show up. So I'm having a look through my die cuts, which have been stored by color for quite some time. These are my black and white die cuts. And I actually didn't find any in there that worked for me, but it was worth a check. And then I'm looking at my embellishments. So I have two drawers of, basically these are a mishmash of embellishments. Most of them are store-bought, some of them are handmade, and just stuff that doesn't fit elsewhere. Mostly embellishments with dimension, although this is not. I was just experimenting with what it would look like to add a pop of color somewhere. This black Prima flower, the paper one right here in my hand, is very tempting to use on this page. It's like quite striking. I really love the flower. I'm not much of a flower person, but I do really love that. But I can't figure out how to work it into the page in a way that it doesn't just take over the page. And so I'm deciding to leave it off. Looking through my second embellishment drawer, which doesn't have nearly as much stuff as my first embellishment drawer. So I'm just trialing out a few different things, but none of them are working. So I kind of feel like this page is pretty much done. I just have to think about what letters I'm going to use for the word SUV, which is going to go under Best Ever, making my title be Best Ever SUV. Ugh, that's a really unappealing title to me. I'm sitting there staring and thinking about how much I don't like that title, and also trying to think about what what letters will I use? And I thought I could use these orange letters just for a huge pop of color and very unexpected. And it is, because the car looks a little purpley, it's not purple, it's brown, but it has real purple look to it when it's in the sun. I thought that it might be complementary to the purple that kind of pops out from the car. But I decided against that pretty quickly because I didn't like the look of it. But I noticed that I had these pink paisley from the Bella Rouge collection, and I really love these. I love how subtle they make the title. I often want a really legible title that stands out, but this one, I really, really love the subtlety of it. And so I had to double check because Sorento just didn't look quite right, and I thought I might have misspelled it, but I did not according to the internet anyways. So now I'm at this point in my layout where I have things laid out, but not many things are glued down to the page. So it's time to start adhering things down. So I am using my Tombow tape runner, and I'm using that because my ATG ran out earlier in the project. You might have noticed it run out, and I reached for my Tombow. My Tombow is also going to run out right here. And so I made a quick switcheroo to a dot runner that was in my stash, but I'm actually going to reach below my desk into where I keep my extra supplies and replace the cartridge on my Tombow tape runner. And that's just a small tape runner. I really do like the ATG. I like ATG and Scotch. The Scotch ATG and the Tombow tape runner and the scrapbooking adhesive dot runner. I like all three of those pretty equal. They all work really well. They hold up over time. They're forgiving when you're first scrapbooking, but they are very grippy after you're finished scrapbooking, and everything kind of cures and nothing falls off of your pages after the fact. So I like them for all of those reasons. Now, in this keyhole frame shape, I'm going to be doing some journaling. So I'm just demonstrating that there are a couple of different widths, like thicknesses of vellum, and I am using a very thin vellum here. Sometimes they call it vellum cardstock, and sometimes they call it vellum paper, and sometimes they just call it vellum. Typically, vellum cardstock is the thicker of those. Yeah, that's just what I notice. I'm no vellum expert or anything, but that's what I've noticed in buying vellum. Now, I took out my notebook because I'm going to use the lines on it to guide me when I write my journaling. I could have used my grid mat, but these lines are a little bit closer together than my grid mat, so I like them for that reason. I'm going to adhere the ampersand on right now because it will help me know where my journaling needs to go, and more importantly, where my journaling needs to not go, because it would be covered by the ampersand. So my journaling says, we spent 2 months car shopping, finally settling on the Kia Sorento. None of us will miss the Mazda 5 with its death trap doors and worn interior. The Mazda 5 has sliding doors. It's kind of like a hybrid between a car and a minivan, and it has sliding doors, but the sliding doors are not automatic, and they really slam hard, especially if you're parked on a hill. And once you start to close it, it's really hard to stop it from closing. And so if somebody was accidentally closing it when someone else was climbing in or out of the car, it was one of my worst nightmares as a mother of young children, was that somebody was going to get a leg or an arm chopped off in that stupid car door. I wouldn't even park on hills because of it. I hated that car door. So anyhow, I'm happy to see that stupid car gone. It's like, usually when we get a new car, I'm always sad for saying goodbye to the old car, but not at all this time. I'm like, good riddance. So here I am just piecing things together, and as I'm going to use one of the layers of paper to help me line up my letters here for the word Sorento. Love those letters. I'm so glad that I noticed them in my Razcog where I keep my letters. I keep my thickers there, but I also keep my loose letters in the bottom of my Razcog, and I just looked over and saw both the orange ones and these ones there. So glad I noticed them. I love having all my supplies close at hand. If you haven't seen my new scrap room video, check it out because my room is completely different upstairs here. It's way smaller, but it still has almost as much stuff in it. So I'm jam-packed in here these days. Using Tombow Mono Multi to adhere these letters, it's my favorite adhesive for gluing non-paper to paper. So these letters are some type of, I don't know, acetate or acrylic, or I don't know what that stuff is called, but it's basically plastic. And now I'm moving up these little embellishments, the plus and the 2 stars, because it doesn't make sense for them to be over there all by themselves. They should be close to the title here to direct your attention towards the title. So now I forgot about this little piece here, and I was like, wait a minute, what was I going to put on that again? It covers up that strip that I really would rather have show, and so I'm actually not going to use it. I don't have a reason to use it, and I can't find a nice place to put it, so I'm just going to change my mind about it and leave it off the page. So at this point, I think I'm done, but then I decide, no, I need to do a little bit of sewing, of course. So I grabbed my little Janome New Home sewing machine. This is a half-size sewing machine. It is the newer model of the Janome Sew Mini, which you might have or have seen around. For the past couple of years, I think they've been making this model instead of the Sew Mini. So that, again, is the Janome New Home sewing machine. And I love this. I have a Kenmore half-size sewing machine, which is basically the same as the Sew Mini. It's just the Kenmore branded one. And I adore this sewing machine, even though this one is new. I've had the other one for quite some time, and I have the luxury of having both of those sewing machines. So I keep one threaded with white thread and one threaded with black thread so that I can easily sew in either of those colors without having to change the bobbin. And then if I were to do some sewing in any other color, what I would do is, if it was a dark color, I'd use my gray sewing machine with the black bobbin and just change the top thread. Or if it was a light color, I would use my white machine with the white bobbin and just change the top color. So I'd always have the bobbins filled with black and white thread, respectively, in my 2 machines. Does that make sense? Did I say that right? I hope I explained that right. So here we go. Two strips of sewing down each side, like the top and the bottom, and then this one is done. And then it just looked unfinished because I hadn't underlined my journaling. So I decided to underline my journaling, and I love how it looks with that. And now, again, just because there's absolutely no color on this page, and even the photos don't have a whole lot of color, I need to do everything I can to make this page look a little bit more engaging and interesting. So I'm just pulling up some of the corners. And before I put this in my album, I'll put some little pop dots to hold the space so that when it's in a thick album and being pressed up against other pages, those little pulled up corners don't sit down. I want them to stay up forevermore, forever and ever. So here are the close-ups of this page. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching me scrap from my stash. That's going to be how I scrap for the next little while. I don't plan to be buying or getting any new supplies anytime soon. One thing that moving rooms has really taught me is that I have a whole lot of stuff. And so I'm going to focus on using some of my things for the next little while. I'm going to kind of use other tools. I'm going to try to use as much of my punches and dies and stuff as I possibly can. So check out my channel. All of my videos are posted on YouTube. So yes, my pacing has slowed down, and I know you guys have expressed some concern, but it's okay. I'm here. I'm just scrapping a little bit more slowly. Make sure that you're subscribed and that you get notifications, and check out these other videos. And thank you so much for watching. Have a really great scrappy day. And week. Have a great scrappy week. That's my tagline. Have a really great scrappy week.